The first time it happened, I told myself it was just bad math. My husband Elias's mother texted about a Sunday lunch at his sister's house. She said they were setting up for 10. There were 11 of us. Elias, me, our baby Nora, my son Jude from my first marriage, his parents, his sister, and brother-in-law and their 2 girls. When we got there were 10 place settings. His mother pressed a hand to her chest and laughed like it was a cute little hostess mistake. I pulled a chair from the hallway and told Jude it was fine. That should have been the end of it. If something awkward happens once, kindness can carry it. But there is a point where kindness stops being generous and starts becoming an accomplice. At the time, I was still trying very hard to be easy. Elias and I had only been married 8 months. Jude was not Elias's biological son, but inside our house that distinction barely existed. Jude called Nora, "My baby," in a voice so protective it could break your heart. Elias had been in his life long enough that our home already felt stitched together. Outside our house, Elias's relatives liked to praise that idea more than they liked to practice it. They said, "Of course we consider all of you family now." They said Jude is such a sweet boy. They said all the right things. That was why the little omissions felt so slippery. At Thanksgiving, matching gingerbread aprons appeared for the grandkids. There were 3. The 2 nieces got one, and baby Nora got one, even though she was too young to decorate cookies. Jude got a smile and a suggestion to help someone else. On Christmas Eve, personalized stockings arrived for the little ones. Tessa, Millie, Nora, nothing for Jude. At a beach rental, the cousin's bunk room somehow had no bed planned for him, so he got placed on a folding cot in the laundry room with promises that he would probably like the privacy. Every single time, there was an explanation ready, a mistake, a mix-up, a detail nobody meant anything by. And every single time, Jude noticed faster than the adults did. Children become experts in reading the room that is reading them. He never asked, "Do they not like me?" He asked, "Should I bring my own chair next time?" He asked, "Do you think Grandma Irene forgets because I don't look like them?" And once, in the car, after another awkward gathering, he asked, "Am I family at their house or just at ours?" I answered with hope, which is not the same thing as truth. I told him grown-ups make thoughtless mistakes. I told him he belonged with us no matter what anyone else did. That was true, but it was incomplete. Because belonging is not only a private feeling, it is also whether a child gets publicly placed inside the circle or only near it. The summer, everything finally broke open. Elias's father turned 70. His sister planned a big backyard dinner at a rented farmhouse, with catered food, rented lights in the trees, and a photographer for what she called legacy pictures. The invitation included a schedule. 4 o'clock arrivals, 5 o'clock family portraits, 6 o'clock dinner. Under the portraits, his sister wrote, "Immediate family first, then cousins, then all households." I stared at that phrase longer than I wanted to. All households. As if there were still categories inside categories. Elias saw my face and said, "Please don't go into this expecting a fight." I remember thinking how unfair it is that the person naming a pattern is always treated like the one bringing the tension instead of the people creating it. But I said I was not expecting a fight. I was expecting a camera. The day of the party, Jude wore the pale blue button-down he saves for occasions where he wants to look older than he is. He spent 10 minutes trying to flatten his hair and asked if he looked too serious. I told him he looked handsome. He said, "Good. I want Grandpa Ron to put this one in the hallway." That sentence almost undid me right there, because he was still trying, still auditioning for permanence. For the first hour, everyone behaved. Elias's mother kissed Jude on the cheek and told him how tall he was getting. His sister offered him extra rolls. His father ruffled his hair and said, "There's my guy." If you had walked in then, you would have thought I was paranoid. That is what makes this kind of exclusion so effective. It survives by performing normalcy in short bursts. Then the photographer called everyone to the garden wall. The big group shot was fine. Everyone squeezed in. Jude stood next to Nora's stroller with one hand on the handle like he was helping. Then the photographer said, "Okay, grandparents with all the grandkids." I waited, because there it was again, the phrase that always made the adults around us sloppy. Elias's mother opened her arms for Tessa and Millie. Then she bent over Nora and said, "Let's get our littlest girl in here too." Jude took one step forward on instinct. Not entitlement, instinct. The kind a child has when he has been told enough times that this is his family too. And Elias's sister, smiling the whole time, touched his shoulder and said, "Hang on, sweetie. This one is just the grandkids. We'll do another with everybody." Grandkids. Some sentences are so revealing, the whole room hears them before the speaker does. The photographer froze. One cousin looked down. Elias's father turned his head like maybe, if he did not fully face the moment, it would stay smaller. Jude stepped back immediately. That was the part one hated most. Not confusion, not protest, reflexive retreat. He had already learned the choreography. I looked at Elias. He looked stunned in that slow, painful way people do when denial finally loses the race. His mother said too brightly, "Oh, for heaven's sake, everyone knows what she means." Yes, I thought. That was exactly the problem. Everyone did know what she meant. Then Jude said, very quietly, "It's okay. I can wait." That sentence snapped something in me. Because children should not have to make themselves smaller to keep adults comfortable in public. I stepped forward and said, "No, actually, it's not okay." The whole garden went still. I kept my voice low. I was not interested in a scene. I was interested in the truth. I said, "We are not doing one photo where the same child gets moved out again and then pretending a second photo fixes it." His sister gave a short, embarrassed laugh and said, "You are making this bigger than it is." And I said, "No, bigger is what all of you have been doing every time you ask him to understand why there wasn't a seat, or a stocking, or a bed, or a place in the picture. This is just the first time you said it clearly enough that no one can call it an accident." His mother set Nora back in the stroller and said, "That is unfair. We love Jude." Love is such a useful word for people who do not want to discuss behavior. I said, "Then start placing him like you do. No shouting, no theatrics, just that." By then, Jude was standing behind me very straight, with the look children get when they are trying to disappear and listen at the same time. Elias finally moved. He came to Jude's side, put a hand on his shoulder, and said, "If he's not in the grandkids' picture, Nora isn't either." That should have ended it. Instead, his sister threw up her hands and said, "This is exactly why people feel like they have to tiptoe around you." Around me, of course. Because once a woman names the pattern, she becomes the pattern. Then Elias's father muttered, "Can we just take the photos and eat dinner?" There it was. The old family prayer. Not fix it. Not answer for it. Just get through it without inconvenience. And that was when I realized this had continued, not only because some people were territorial or careless, it had continued because everyone else preferred comfort to correction. So I said, "You can absolutely take photos and eat dinner, we're just not staying for it." Elias looked at me for 1 second, then nodded. Not because I won. Because he had finally arrived. We left before sunset. No one chased us. No one offered the kind of apology that risks clarity. On the drive home, Jude sat quietly for a long time. Then he said, "I knew she didn't mean Nora." I turned around and asked what he meant. He looked out the window and said, "When she said grandkids, I knew she meant kids that came from them. I just didn't know she would say it out loud." There are moments when your heart breaks, and then there are moments when it breaks because your child was ahead of you. This was the second kind. That night, after the kids were asleep, Elias and I sat at the kitchen table in the terrible peace that comes after a truth nobody can stuff back into the closet. He said, "I should have stopped this sooner." I said yes. Not cruelly, just yes, because forgiveness without accuracy is just delay. To his credit, he did not defend himself. The next morning, he called his parents and sister and told them we would not be coming to family events for a while. He told them Jude would not be available for selective belonging anymore. He told them if they wanted a relationship with our household, they would have to stop acting like inclusion was a courtesy they could extend and retract. His mother cried. His sister got angry. His father apparently said the whole thing had become too complicated. Complicated is another word adults use when the child's pain starts inconveniencing tradition. A week later, his mother mailed us a framed copy of the big group photo from before the grandkids' picture. Everyone smiling, everyone present. A sticky note on the back said, "Thought you might like this one better." I stared at it for a long time because in her mind she had solved the problem. A version of the day where the evidence looked softer. That evening Jude asked if we were going to hang it up. And that was the easiest question anybody had asked me all week. No, I said. We don't decorate with proof that we settled for less than we should have. A month later, we made our own hallway wall. Not out of revenge. Out of correction. We printed ordinary photos instead of milestone ones. Jude teaching Nora how to stack blocks. Elias asleep on the couch with both kids draped over him. Me laughing in the kitchen with flour on my cheek. Nothing impressive. Everything true. When Jude helped me line up the frames, he stepped back, tilted his head, and said, "This wall looks like everyone belongs here." That sentence healed something the party exposed. Not everything, but enough to breathe. We still keep Elias's family at a distance. They are nicer now, which is often what happens when access gets attached to standards. But nice is not the same as changed, and changed is the only thing children can safely trust. So now we move slower. We watch actions. We believe patterns. Because family exclusion rarely begins with a dramatic declaration. It begins with one missing chair, one forgotten stocking, one child learning to hover at the edge of the frame while adults congratulate themselves for leaving space nearby. The photo did not create the truth. It just finally held still long enough for me to see it.
Thank you for watching. If this story pulled you in, do me one favor. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so the next one finds you the moment it drops. Remember, nothing is ever just what it seems. See you on the next one.